Honorable Chairman, there's a beautiful song by Don McLean. The beautiful song by Don McLean called Starry, Starry Nights. It's actually a eulogy of Vincent van Gogh, one of the greatest artists, a brilliant impressionist painter, and probably the most influential figure in the history of Western art, and yet a very sensitive human being. His paintings sold for millions and millions of dollars, but he died in abject poverty. He painted ordinary people, cypress trees, beautiful flowers, landscapes, and starry nights. He suffered from depression and psychotic episodes and delusions. He once said, "There's nothing more artistic than to love people." He loved everything around him, but he was scared of loneliness. In a bout of depression and loneliness, he cut off his ear and later committed suicide. When he was alive, no one cared for him. The song ends, "The world was never meant for one as beautiful as you." On the other hand, sir, the movie Beautiful Mind is about John Nash, the most brilliant mathematician. John Nash also suffered from depression and mental illness, but the difference is he had support of his wife and family, and he got good treatment and care, and he went on to get the Nobel Prize in mathematics. These people have severe disabilities, sir. Yes. These people had severe disabilities, but they also had phenomenal abilities, sir, more than most of us. So we as a country need to recognize and support these beautiful minds. The Mental Health Care Bill 2016 repeals the Mental Health Care Act of 1987, and it is very, very comprehensive. I appreciate the Honorable Minister for taking the views of all the stakeholders in drafting the bill, the political parties, the medical fraternities, the civil societies, the standing committee, and the judiciary. Congratulations, sir. Earlier, the laws governing the mental illness, the Indian Lunatic Asylum Act 1958 and the Indian Lunacy Act 1912 ignored the human rights aspect. After 40 years of independence, we did enact the Mental Health Care Act of 87, but it was really not implemented, sir. The present bill is comprehensive and includes access to health care for mentally ill people, treatment, rehabilitation, insurance, right to choice of treatment, but most importantly, decriminalizes attempts at suicide and regulate mental establishment. The Honorable Minister had earlier said that this bill, the earlier bill was regulation-centric, whereas this bill is patient-centric. I congratulate him, sir. But how do we provide support and care for these vulnerable individuals? Firstly, awareness and acceptance. Mental patients face social stigma. Public need to be aware. They need to be accepted in the society, and they should not be confined. So there need to be a budget for awareness, TV and media messages, etc. Secondly, they need access to care. Many honorable members raised this point. Presently, only 2%, about 2% of the population suffer from mental illness. But other day, Shashi Tharoorji and Matabji was mentioning it is 5%, and Nimhan says is 10.6% of the population has some form of mental illness. And there are only about 3,500 psychiatrists, sir. We need more institutions like Nimhan's. And, but more importantly, about the psychology. There's been a great emphasis on psychiatrists, and psychiatrists are doctors who give chemicals and medicines, sir. We need psychologists, and psychologists are even more scarce. There are only about 1,000 or so registered psychologists in the country. And there are so many branches of psychology, including health psychology, sir. We need to really look at how we can increase the number of psychologists in our country, sir. Most hospitals and institutions do not have psychologists, sir. We are very glad this bill has provisions for insurance cover of mental illness. But in cases of mental illness, many cases, they are comorbid conditions, sir. Because of mental illness, other diseases like heart attack and gastroenterology exist, and sometimes the opposite. Because of other diseases, mental illness exists. Now, even if you provide insurance coverage, insurance are private companies and they're independent entities, even PSUs. How do you make them, their policies cover this, sir? We can enact a bill in the parliament, but what if they don't provide the coverages? Because it's a business issue, we can't force them. The issue of psychological consultations are not covered under the insurance, and psychological consultations today are not covered in the insurance policies, and are very likely that tomorrow also, after this bill, they may not be covered, sir. The most important question regarding insurance, sir, a lot of mentally challenged children are born mentally challenged. So whose insurance covers them, the mother's or the child? So there need to be a public health support system for that, sir. The urban life has become very stressful, sir, and honorable member has extolled the virtues of joint family. Yes, sir, the joint family acts like a shock absorber. But in today's world, I don't think that shock absorber exists in urban life. And we need urban counseling centers, sir. But it's not just an urban problem, sir. We talk so many times about farmer suicide. And a lot of times it's not because of lack of fertilizers or lack of rainfall, because the lifestyle is changing and youth are fleeing. So the elderly and the middle class farmers are living without support in the villages, sir. We need medical counseling, psychological counseling there. NIMHANS has a rural outreach program, but it's very, very, very tiny, and it's probably the only one in the country. We need more programs like this, sir. Property management. We've seen in so many movies that criminally minded relatives declare somebody lunatic and usurp their property, sir. We need protection, and the bill, there's a lacuna in the bill, and it doesn't protect the property of the mentally challenged people, sir. But most importantly, sir, the budget puts the entire thing in perspective. Currently, the mental health accounts for 0.16% of the total union health budget. The union health budget itself is a little small, of 2.2% of the overall budget. So if you translate it, the budget for mental health will be 0.0036. The minister can correct me on this, but if it is so low, how can we really implement this bill? 0.0036% of the entire. Lastly, it decriminalizes attempts to suicide, sir. That is very welcome. But also we've seen in many cases that criminals commit crime and then they go to the court and take shelter, saying at the time of crime they were mentally unstable. Again, an important point of distinguishing and codifying behavioral disorder from mental disorder. Ravindra Babuji has got that point out. It's very, very important. Otherwise, criminals will take shelter on this law, sir. Lastly, sir, I'm very glad we are passing this bill today. Let us make sure the bill is implemented immediately. Absolutely. Absolutely. But behavioral change is something else. You're absolutely right. But, sir, in the end, we should make sure that no one will ever say our country, India, is not meant for one as beautiful as these people. On behalf of the TRS Rashtra Samiti, I support the bill, sir, and its speedy implementation. Thank you, sir.